look at this hive in the context of what do they need before going into winter. Now, depending on where you are in the country, this is super relevant or not. But, usually I look at 4 weeks before daytime temperatures are in the 50s. I need to have my hive 100% ready for winter. So however many pounds of honey you need in your area, varroa mites completely under control, 4 weeks before daytime temperatures are in the 50s. If you're up north, that's like now. If you're way down south, then you've probably got 6 weeks to 2 months before you get to that point. If you're in the southeast, yeah, again, you never get there. But when it comes to food, if you're in the northern half of the United States, you probably need, or really the northern third, you need closer to 80 pounds of stored honey to overwinter. If you're in the southern half or so, you really need more like 40 pounds. So, and I want to be at that point 4 weeks before daytime temperatures consistently are in the 50s. Because even once you have cold fronts start blowing through and you've got days in the 60s and 50s, bees just stop taking and storing food efficiently. So we're going to look at this hive, see if they need food or not. The other huge caveat is, my goodness, look at the U.S. drought map. Google U.S. drought monitor. And if you're in a drought area, that's a great indication you should really be feeding pollen patties. If you're in an area with a really strong fall nectar flow, an awesome fall pollen flow with a huge variety of pollen coming in like crazy, no drought, you can probably get away in many cases without feeding pollen patties. I don't think it's going to hurt your bees. Good chance it'll still help them. But especially if you're in a drought area, if you're in Texas like I am, I mean, we're in a pretty rough drought. We haven't had a good rain in a long time. The fall pollen flow is terrible. You need to be feeding a pollen patty every 7 to 10 days. And that's ensuring that those developing baby bees that have to survive all winter long are being fed a proper nutritional diet so that they can survive the whole winter. If the bees don't have the nutritional resources to properly feed those developing bees, then they aren't going to survive the winter. So, if you're in a drought area or don't have a great fall pollen flow, feed pollen patties as an insurance every 7 to 10 days. So, checking out this hive, the first thing I do, this top box, this was just the honey super we put on after extraction, and we fed them a couple gallons of syrup, and lifting up on it, it's got about 30 pounds stored back in it from our feeding and a little bit of nectar they found somewhere. So, all I really want this time of year, as long as, I'm about 6 weeks to 7 weeks, knock on wood, from days in the 50s and 60s. So I really only want about 30 pounds since I've got a long way until I've got those daytime temperatures that are really cool. So I'm probably not going to be feeding this hive. Now, if I've got under 30 pounds, I'm going to be giving them some gallons of syrup in September. The big thing I want to see, though, is I want to make sure I haven't overfed. I want to find frames that are mostly empty or that have plenty of room for the queen to still lay. So, I've got a couple frames like this still in the hive where, they're not completely full. They've got some open syrup and nectar, but, there's plenty of room for the bees to move honey out of the way if they want to give the queen somewhere to lay, and that's what's important. I've got a handful of frames in here that, this is beautiful. I mean, this is exactly what I'm looking for this time of year. I've got capped brood all in the middle. I've got a thick band of honey around the edge. That's really what I want to see. They're leaving this middle open for brood rearing. They're putting a thick band of honey around the edges of the frames in preparation for winter. That's what I want to see. This box has probably 10 to 15 pounds of stored honey. So they've really got plenty of stored nectar. The bottom box only, I would say, probably has about 10 pounds of stored honey in it, but they've got plenty of honey up above. And that's fine. This is probably a hive I will only give a couple more gallons of feed to this year, and they should be in pretty good shape. Now the last thing I'm looking at is I still want to see eggs and larvae, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of pollen. So I really think that, again, this hive, I'm feeding all of my hives a pollen patty every 7 to 10 days across the board, because what little pollen I am seeing in general right now just doesn't have a lot of variation to it. You don't only need pollen, but you need variation in pollen, different colors. And I'm just not seeing that. So this hive has about 6 frames of brood, which isn't bad for this time of year. It's about what you would expect with the drought we've been in. They've got sufficient stores, but not a lot of pollen. So really all I'm doing to a hive like this is I am giving them pollen patty every 7 to 10 days. I'm making sure the varroa mites are under 1 per 100 bees, and that's it. I mean, I'll keep giving them pollen patties probably through mid-October. I'll probably give them a couple more gallons of syrup in early October, just so they can kind of put that wherever they want it in their brood nest area. And other than that, this hive's good to go.